What's up, y'all? Today we are going to be making an American flag. I was wanting to make a flag that anybody could make, even if they had limited tools. The only thing that you might have to buy that you don't have is the template for the Union, so you can make the stars. So basically we're going to paint the whole thing white, and then we're going to paint the red stripes with this colonial red spray paint. And we're going to paint the Union with this ink blue. But anyhow, this is the finish we're going for. I think it's a pretty good finish if you're trying to get a faded look. And you're basically just sanding off enough paint to give you the white color. Alright, y'all, so the first thing we're going to do is take this project panel that I had left over from a previous project. We're going to cut all 13 stripes out on the table saw, each one of them 1.5 inches wide. After I get through cutting them on the table saw, we'll take them over to the miter saw. So I'm ripping the width for the stripes on the table saw. If you don't have a table saw, you can purchase lumber at the big box store already 1.5 inches wide, 3/4 inch thick, and all you have to do is cut the length. Enough off of that project panel to get all these stripes but one, and that's going to be one of the shorter ones. What I'm going to do is take this board that I had over my scrap pile, and I'm going to set the guide to the thickness of these stripes, and I'm just going to resaw this board over on the table saw. That should take care of that one. There's no need in pulling out the planer just from one board. So anyhow, that's an easy way if you need to take some thickness off of a board. Now you might have to make several passes to get that done. This one we might could get it done all in one pass, but we'll probably take a couple just in case. First 6 boards we're going to have to cut out on the flag is 37 inches long. Now I've already squared up one end, so we got a good end to pull off of to get our measurement, and we're going to do that on the... So the next step is to cut these stripes that is just to the right of the Union. Those, we need 7 of those, and they need to be 22 1/4. Got all the stripes cut out. Now it is time to cut the Union out, and I think I'm going to use this board. It's off of an old headboard. The other half of this we actually use for the Exxon sign. So anyhow, this is one solid piece of board. Should make the Union pretty easy. Anyhow, we're going to go on and cut the length and width out of the Union off that board over at the... Last thing we got to do before we start painting it is take the sander, and we're just going to sand over these edges just in case some of these pieces are a little thicker than others. You won't really be able to tell. So we got the edges on the stripes sanded, and we also got the edges on the Union sanded and the old finish sanded off. We're going to come back, put 2 coats of white on the entire flag, and then we can finish putting the rest of the colors on it. Alright, y'all, so now we're going to paint the Union. This paint does not have to be super thick, because remember, we're going to be sanding it back down to get some of that white to come back through. So the last thing we got to do is paint the 7. Next thing we got to do is give everything a faded look. I like to use 220 grit sandpaper, and I don't like to use the actual sander when I'm doing it because it might take off too much. But when you are doing the white, you can actually use that. It's okay if you get through on the wood just a little bit. So we got everything sanded down, looks pretty good. We got the union fastened down to the board. We're gonna spray the stars on, and for that we're gonna use some Krylon. Now you can use Rust-Oleum or whatever brand you want. I wouldn't use a cheap brand because that paint doesn't seem to do quite as good as this. But anyhow, when we spray this on it, just make sure it's kind of a light spray. It don't need to be real heavy because we want this to look kind of faded also. Alright y'all, so we got everything painted, got it all laid out to make sure everything looks good, and now we got it flipped over on the face of it, getting ready to put it together. Now I got a clamp on it to make sure everything's pulled up tight. If you need to, you can put a couple more closer to the ends, and we already got our holes pre-drilled for our screws. Originally I was going to use staples and glue, but I didn't have the right length staples, so we're going to go ahead and put it together with some, actually we're going to use some sheetrock screws. Now I'm not too fond about these for most projects, but for this it'll be pretty good. It's not going to be anything structural, so they should work. Alright y'all, so one last thing before we put it together, make sure your union is on the correct side. It's real easy to want to put it over here, but anyhow, make sure it's on the correct side, and make sure the stars is facing the correct way when you put it together. Make sure they're not upside down. Alright y'all, I was going to show y'all how I connected the union and the stripes together. So all these slats are 1.5 inches wide, and I made this in 2 inches. That way there'd be enough material to catch the union and these stripes to fasten those together. So the last thing we got to do is create a French cleat, and there basically is going to be one on this side and one on that side to hold it up on the wall, and that's the last thing we got to do. I hope y'all enjoyed the video today. The flags are a lot easier than what I thought they would be to make. This is the first one I've ever made. I hope this helped y'all out. I hope you got some tips from it. If you got any questions, just leave them down below, and I will see y'all on the next one.